and welcome back to my channel. So today I have another Sims 4 speed build for you, and I'm not going to lie, I think this is the fourth time I have attempted this voiceover, so fingers crossed it works this time because my editing software is just giving me a hard time right now. So I only say that because in case I don't remember what I have and haven't said, that's why. It's because I've probably said it several times and I can't remember if I've said it on this particular voiceover. But anyways, I decided that I wanted to do this like kind of funky, like modern, interesting architectural thing going on here. And I am actually building in Britechester for this particular build. And actually I'm building on a lot that I've never used before, which is kind of fun. I'm trying to do better about actually using more lots in the game because I feel like I use the same ones over and over again. And honestly, you really can't tell what the lot's going to look like until you actually go to it. So I'm trying out new things for this. And I think technically what was on this lot was dorms or something like that, or university housing. But I thought that it might be fun if the couple that lived here were actually like two professors. I was thinking one of them was maybe an architecture professor and the other one is maybe an interior design professor. So I really wanted to capture that in like the exterior and interior of this home. I kind of wanted it to look a little more interesting and like, you know, not like, I don't want to say plain, like houses aren't plain, but just more interesting, I guess. And maybe not like my typical builds, I guess really is more so what I'm saying. And I thought the like stone columns are really cool here in the front. And I just tried to make things kind of angular and like making that like giant window out of the tiny windows, just something new and different. And I am proud of myself because the landscape is actually pretty minimal, especially for me. So if you've watched my other videos, you know that I sometimes do a lot of landscaping, which don't get me wrong, I really love doing, but I feel like I need to challenge myself and maybe like try to do less or like do different things, if that makes sense. But anyways, I think I achieved it in this one. And I will say this is a fairly large home, especially since I only made it a 1 bedroom and like 2.5 bath. Or no, excuse me, 1.5 bath. I was gonna say 2 baths, but one of them's a half. Anyways, basically 1 bathroom, ensuite, and a like powder room. So I wanted this to be like just really luxurious and like they're honestly probably living their best life here. And this house is basically built for entertaining. Like I imagine that they have a lot of people over. And so that space right there that I'm working on is the kitchen for this. And I'm not going to lie, I struggled a little bit with this, trying to figure out exactly what I wanted, like how modern did I want to go. I think I ended up mixing some more like mid-century, like 70s retro kind of stuff in here, like a little bit with the modern. And I'm not going to lie, I did not care for this cabinetry. I think that was like throwing me off. So I actually end up changing all the cabinetry, but don't worry, you do not have to actually watch me change it all. It'll just be changed here in a minute. But I think that's what it was. I end up swapping it out for a like deeper, darker wood tone, which I think made this space a lot warmer, if that makes sense. Like I wasn't trying to go for that like, you know, steel concrete kind of modern, if that makes sense. But I guess more so maybe like a mid-century modern, but I really wanted this just to be like really focused on entertaining and just like cozy, you know what I mean? And so I think bringing in some of those darker wood tones really helped. And way later on in the build, I actually do end up swapping out the wall and floor tiles here in the kitchen because I found some that I liked better when I went to go do the bathrooms. I feel like a lot of times I end up matching the kitchen and the bathrooms. I guess it just kind of makes sense to me for those things to be similar, but I guess realistically that's not always the case. I don't know, but it's just like what I tend to do. And because I figured like the Sims like that have the kitchen, have the bathroom, like they'd have the same preferences, I guess, but like kids' bathrooms are a little bit different. And I don't know why I'm talking about bathrooms so much, but especially when I'm working on the dining room here. And you can see I kind of bumped out that space a little bit because I found this table swatch and I was like, I have to use this. Like, so this space isn't big enough, so we have to change it. Like this table's not going anywhere. So we end up using that. And you can see too, it like, I did not change one of those chair swatches. And I don't know why, like I just skipped over that one, but I do fix it. Don't worry. Like that is like, I do fix it. And like, cause it just, you know, it really like, I don't know why I skipped it, but I am really happy with how this came out. I did still struggle some with some of the decorations in the dining space, to be honest. And I feel like when I was actually building, or rather, I guess, decorating this home, I struggled a bit, and I don't know why. It could be I was just like in one of those like creative funks where like I just didn't quite know what I wanted to do, but I think it came together in the end and ended up being really lovely. And I kind of did minimal like clutter in here, which again, if you've watched my other videos, is like rare for me, but I figured they would have like a coffee machine here, especially like professors. I feel like, you know, I was in academia for a while actually, and basically I feel like colleges run off of coffee and like the students run off of coffee. So I don't know, let me know, like, was that your experience if you did actually like go to a college or university? Or I feel like even like, you know, teachers like in any capacity would probably be drinking a lot of coffee. I don't know, because it's not like, I feel like it is definitely a difficult job, so I feel like you would just be using a lot of coffee. I don't know, again, I'm going off on a tangent, and part of it probably is because I have done this like voiceover several times, so I'm just kind of all over the place. But this entranceway, I'm actually really happy with this entranceway. I struggled for a bit with what I wanted, but I really like the idea of having a bunch of bookcases. Like, they have a lot of books here, like resources like for them and things like that. And I thought it was just really cool to be able to walk in and see that. And again, bringing in that really rich wood tone here and using the Dream Home Decorator like corner couches and making that really cool like round couch and putting that like, I was going to say floral thing, but really I guess it's kind of like feathers in there. I just thought looked kind of cool. And I did put in some more entryway kind of items like a coat rack, umbrella rack, like that kind of stuff in here as well. And I did end up cluttering, I think, every single one of those boxes. I did put like awards and stuff in here because I figured maybe they've gotten awards for different like conferences or papers or things like, you know, that they were nominated for. So I kind of just like filled in some of that, and then just some other like books and I don't know, like stationery kind of stuff. And you can see I actually put a bunch of those boxes on top of the cabinetry, and that's because so many items kept wanting to clip to the top of them. If you put something there, items won't do that. So it's easier to place things where they don't necessarily want to be placed, if that makes sense. So I do delete all of those out. There's not just random boxes up there, but it helps when you're just placing stuff. So I thought I would mention it because like it is so frustrating when things just keep on like clipping to the top of whatever you're like trying to put clutter on. And I thought it'd be really cool to put like some of these canvases up here. And I think I ended up putting like a vase up here as well. And then I actually ended up adding curtains around these doorways because I don't know, I just thought it would be kind of neat. Like that maybe like, you know, instead of doors, like I guess you could close the curtains, or honestly, it could just be that I don't know, they like that and it brings in that like texture there. And so this is, I actually ended up changing the tile for everything. And I'm not gonna lie, y'all, the bathroom, I think, is what I'm actually working on next. Like, the bathroom is definitely interesting. I really tried to pull on the idea that these Sims like to try to do interesting things when it comes to design and architecture. So I've never done a bathroom like this before, and it has been play tested and it all works. And you're probably wondering like, why are you telling me that? It's because it's kind of weird looking, but I think it looks really cool. And what I actually end up doing is I end up making almost like an entranceway to their suite. So I end up changing where the door is so that it's not like a general bathroom, but it's part of their like suite here, the owner's suite. And that'll make more sense once I actually start like moving stuff around. And I tried putting maybe a doorway or something there, but I just didn't like the way it looked there on the diagonal wall. And I did lower that platform, like figuring, yeah, like the water from the shower would end up going down the drain that way. And you can see here, I'm like almost creating little pockets for everything in this room. And I do swap it around. I do put the bathtub over by the windows because I felt like that made a whole lot more sense. Like, I feel like if you were hanging out in this really like cool, like a jacuzzi whirlpool tub, that you would want to like be by the windows and stuff like that. I can imagine like relaxing in that tub and just like being able to look out the window. I'm also like imagining that maybe those windows are those like frosted kind of like windows, if that makes sense. So we're gonna pretend they're like frosted and they don't need to have curtains and they're in the bathroom. I mean, it doesn't really matter in The Sims, but that's just what was in my brain, so I thought I would share it with you. And then I end up having the like toilet and the sink over in this other corner, which again, I did play test that your Sim can get around here. And it just ended up being this like really cool, funky looking space, which was kind of fun. Like I said, something new and different for me. And then I just added, I think, like a mirror in that like bathroom entranceway. And then like, I think I added some more of those like feather looking, like fuzzy things. I don't know what you call that. Like, let me know if you know what that's called. But then in their bedroom, it also has like a big seating space as well. But I thought this just ended up looking really nice and cozy, and that's what I wanted. But I did struggle with what I wanted to put on the walls, but I was happy with what we ended up with. And I ended up putting some more Dream Home Decorator like organization in here so that you have organization like around that fireplace, and that's kind of like their closet instead of having like their own dressers, if that makes sense. And I'm so excited because I finally used the end table and coffee table from the Get Together expansion pack we got recently that had like that resin like in the wood. I've been wanting to use that like since we got it, but it never really fit anything. Does that make sense? Like, I tried, but it never looked quite right. And I think it looks really cool in this house. So I used the end tables here in the bedroom and the coffee table actually out in the living space. And I think it turned out really nicely and just made sense in this build. And you could see too that I kind of just like cut to having these in place. I'm not gonna lie, they gave me a really hard time trying to place all these pieces together. So I kind of just paused my recording so you didn't have to watch me do that. I ended up actually on the other side of this wall is where the bookcases were for the entranceway, and I'm wondering if that had something to do with it. Like, they were trying to clip really weird, so I actually moved those bookcases away from the wall so I could put in all this cabinetry, and then I put the bookcases back. And I think maybe that helped. But anyways, just like letting you know, it just kind of like magically happened because it was giving me such a hard time. And then I ended up bringing in that like, it looks like a spooky woods like wallpaper to me. And I don't know if I've really ever used it, but I thought it looked so cool in this space. And like with the contrasting of the like light wood paneling on the other walls, like I just think it looked really neat. And I actually used these like blinds here that I think came with Snowy Escape, if I remember correctly, and I thought that looked really cool here. And I believe I actually end up using the Decor to the Max like wooden frames around this window as well, which I thought ended up looking really cool and kind of like, I don't know, really making the windows look very pronounced in this space. And I actually end up using that technique out in the living room as well, and I think it looks so cool out there. And like that would be something like if you don't know how to use those, like, you know, or not sure like where to put them, that like if you actually put them on the wall and then you put like wallpaper on that same panel, it kind of like works like a piece of art or like an accent kind of thing, which you'll kind of see what I mean once I get to the living room because I used that kind of technique in there. And then in this like entrance space, like I just kind of put like this little table here, and that's like right off of the living room. So that's where you're going to go to the half bath, the owner's suite, and then what we're working on right now is their office. And I ended up actually doing one office for both of them, but they each have their own space and their own desk. So this this house actually has two computers. Like I said, this is a very like luxurious house in terms of like your Sims living here. It actually ended up coming to about 135,000 simoleons. It is definitely not an inexpensive home. But I thought it just like, I don't know, I really liked the way it turned out and really thinking about the Sims, what they would have in their home, what it would look like and that kind of thing. And so I ended up, the one with the fuzzy chair, that is the interior designer, and the one with the like, more architecture looking desk is the one for the architect. And I know that it actually came with the Dream Home Decorator pack, but I just liked it aesthetically for the architecture professor. And I did end up kind of moving stuff around a little bit, and we had that really cool Dream Home Decorator board, which I thought was so perfect in here for this sim, and just adding a bunch of stuff that I felt like was kind of appropriate to like what their job is. And I mean, who knows, maybe it's just like an interior designer and it's not necessarily a professor, which is also like something you could play in the game. So if that's something that you would like to like utilize, like that would be something cool to do as well. And then I just added just a bunch of stuff like that I felt like would look good on their individual desks. And I will say that like, I'm not sure why, but I ended up making the architecture side not quite as organized, if that makes sense. Like, there's a lot of papers, and again, I feel like being a professor, you deal with a lot of paperwork, you deal with a lot of stuff, and like, you know, having to grade papers and all that kind of good stuff. And so just having a bunch of stuff everywhere, like I'm thinking maybe they have a bunch of stuff there for different activities like that they do in class with their students, like that kind of stuff. And this space is actually kind of the entranceway to that owner's suite that I was talking about. And it's almost like a lobby. Like it's kind of I'm telling you, this house is so luxurious, but I just thought it was just so fun and kind of like, quirky to have like this kind of entrance space here. And again, thinking like an interior designer and an architect would have like these kind of interesting spaces. And for the living room, I was actually really surprised that I ended up like being able to fill in this space. I honestly was a little bit worried because this is so large, but we end up having a focal point over by the fireplace, and I actually end up adding in a piano here. And I think it was one of my other voice recordings that I tried. I think I was talking about whether it was like a baby grand or a grand piano, and honestly, I don't know which one that is considered. So I don't know. If you know what's actually technically in the game, let me know. I'm curious. And you can see here I'm just kind of adding in, I did those panels and then kind of swapped up the wallpaper on the panel. So I think that gives like an interesting contrast with the surroundings to do that. And so anyways, that is a way that I feel like you could really utilize those panels if that's not something you use in your game. And then just adding in a nice seating area, that beautiful big lamp that we got with Decor to the Max, which I always want to use, but honestly, it sometimes is difficult to use because it is just so large. And then I end up adding like a small seating space over here to kind of fill in that area, but to also like, maybe that's a seating space you can hang out or like near the piano, like if somebody's playing, that kind of thing. Like that's what was going through my head when I was making that space. And I do end up, I believe I put curtains there on the wall as well with all those little windows, and I am happy with the way it turned out. I was a little worried about the small windows, like it looked really cool on the outside, but I was like, I don't know how that's gonna work once we actually get into the build, but I think they look really good in here. And then just adding a little bit of artwork here to the wall behind the piano. I didn't want to put a ton of stuff over here because I really wanted the piano to kind of stand on its own, and I was excited to actually be able to use one of those big pianos because I feel like I never get to use them because they are so large. And of course now we do have that like stand-up piano that came with the get together pack, which I've only used a couple of times, but anyways, I end up on the outside like adding in those base game, like I don't even know what you'd call those, like grass things. They're actually out of like debug, and you can pull those out, and I think it was like a really cool way to define some of that landscaping and kept me from doing too much landscaping to be honest. And what I ended up doing is putting a little driveway over here, and I thought it would be kind of cute to have like grass in between all of the stonework. I don't know, I feel like I've seen that, like to me it seems like a fancy driveway thing, but I don't know if it's really considered fancy, but you know what I mean, like you might have like those like paved like driveways with like the center missing and it's got like gravel or grass or something in it. I don't know. Like that's what I was channeling when I was making that driveway. And then when I was doing the front here, I had a hard time deciding what kind of vegetation I wanted to put on those grass things. But I do figure it out a little bit later on. And we do actually have a hot tub out here and a pool. So again, like thinking that this couple does a lot of entertaining for Sims, and I don't know, that's just like fun to me, like to think about like that's how that sim would live, if that makes sense. And then we end up putting in here another one of those grass things, which I think again helped a lot with this space. And I do end up adding some random windows up there because I just think it broke up that big wall there, especially with that like roof piece there. And we do actually end up moving the bar over by the hot tub and putting in the Desert Luxe like fireplace over by the grill, and I think that looked so cool here. And then just adding in a lovely glass table. I figured your Sims could come hang out here, and I do actually put some lawn chairs out here as well, so your Sims can like lounge by the pool while they're hanging out. Like honestly, like I would love to like vacation here, you know what I mean? Like I feel like I would take a vacation here like bring my friends with me and we would just like hang out. Like I wouldn't even have to leave, we would just hang out by the pool, the hot tub, like grill out. Like I mean, maybe I just need to go on a vacation. I feel like maybe that's like my brain is telling me that it's time for me to go do something like that. And like one of those like really relaxing ones where you don't have like a ton of stuff planned. But anyways, who knows? Maybe I'll take a vacation at some point. And just adding in a few like pool floats in here, and then just finally filling in those grass spaces, which I end up using rocks in, which I think helped a whole lot. Because I think I was struggling with just using plants in there, but I think the rocks help break up that grass and kind of give a natural place for like plants to be, if that makes sense. So we just kind of fill in there with several different types of plants, and I try not to do like too terribly much because I do want it to be a little like not super overdone, which again for me this is very much not a lot of landscaping. Like, and I wanted to change up the front a little bit, so I do swap out this fountain for that like cube looking one, because I think it just looked a lot better there in the front. Like, it wasn't quite big enough, if that makes sense. And then just adding in a few finishing touches out here on the back porch. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I would really appreciate it, and I hope you have a really sweet day. Bye, everybody.
I'd run 1,000 miles if I could run with you. And from what I have heard, you do the same thing.